Good morning. This is Kasturi Day. I was continuing with the elements, compounds and mixtures chapter, chemistry chapter according to ICSE syllabus class 7. I was discussing about the chromatography, which is a modern technique to separate the colored components. Okay. So I was telling you that it depends on the principle that components separates on the basis of the difference between two phases. Okay, and one which is a stationary phase, that is the adsorbent, and the other is the mobile phase, that is the solution. It is adsorbent. Stationary phase is adsorbent. ADSORBENT. Okay. Please specify the spelling. It's adsorbent. Okay. What is an adsorbent or adsorption rather? What is that process? It is the ability of a substance to stick to an unlike substance of a liquid or a gas on the surface of the solid material, forming a thin film on the surface. That is, it's the ability to stick, its ability of a substance to stick to an unlike substance. An unlike substance can stick to a substance, okay, can stick to a substance like a film, like rather what do you say, filter paper. If you take a filter paper and on which the ink particles, ink components are sticking to it, so that will be the adsorption process. Okay, so and on this process, the what do you say, the chromatography depends. Okay, the solid material, it forms the solid material, that is the ink component. It forms a thin film on the filter paper, on the surface, that is the filter paper. Okay, it's an example for this. So the solid material is forming a thin film on the surface. That is the adsorption process on which the chromatography depends. Okay, now paper chromatography, I told you, is a special type of paper in which a special type of paper is taken called Whatman filter paper, or you can take an ordinary filter paper also. Now here what happens, first a line is drawn near the bottom edge of the paper. Then a drop of mixture is placed on the paper just above that line which has been drawn. Now the paper is dipped in the solvent, that is let's say the ink. If we take ink as the solvent, we dip the paper, filter paper, inside that solvent in a beaker. Now the line drawn is above the level of the solvent. In such a way it should be dipped that the solvent level should be below the line which has been drawn on the bottom edge of the paper. Now the solvent slowly rises on the paper, takes along with the drops of the substance. The solvent, what happens, it rises up the paper, and it along with it the drops of the substances are taken up. Now the components of the drop, more soluble, rises faster. Okay, components of the drop more soluble rises faster, and the components of the drop which are less soluble, they rise in a slow level. Now various spots are seen on the paper. Now the spots indicate a component of the mixture. Whatever the spots we see on the filter paper, that will be the component of the mixture. When the paper is removed from the solvent and then it is dried. Okay. Now what is the advantage of this chromatography? Very small quantity of a substance can be separated, and components with very similar physical and chemical properties can be separated, and it also identifies the different constituents of the mixture. So what happens? for this process, for chromatography process, this is also a separation of the mixture. So in this process, very small quantity of the mixture can be utilized, and the components which are very similar, the components of the mixture which are very similar in their physical and chemical properties, they can be separated, and also different constituents of the mixture can be identified. What are the uses? It separates the pigments from natural colors, drugs from blood. Pathological tests we can do by this process, and colors can be separated in a dye. Okay. Now, separation of the constituents of the mixture with more than 2 constituents. If there are more than 2 constituents in a mixture, how to separate them? Like sand, sawdust and salt. If there are, let's say 3 components are there in a mixture. First, the mixture is taken in a glass beaker. Then water is added to them. Okay. Then what happens? The salt, which is soluble in water, get dissolved. And the sawdust, which is lighter than water, it floats up above the water. And the sand, which is heavier than water, it settles down in the beaker. Now, the salt solution with the sawdust is poured slowly on the filter paper, which is fixed in a funnel. What do? We take a funnel where a filter paper is attached, and we pour the salt solution with the sawdust into that filter paper. The salt solution passes through it, and the residue which remains in the filter paper is the sawdust. So sawdust is separated. Then as we have poured out the salt solution with the sawdust, so the sand has remained in the beaker as sediment. Now, how to separate the salt from the solution? That the filtrate which has come out through the filter paper. Now, from that solution, what do? We evaporate the water, evaporate the solution. So, what happens? Salt remains in the dish, and the water from the solution has evaporated. So, by this way, we can get the salt back. Again, if there are 3 components like iron filings, sulfur and common salt. Now, what do we do in this? First, we take a magnet near the mixture, and the iron particles, iron filings, which are magnetic in nature, they get attracted towards the magnet and iron is separated. Now we add the water to the remaining mixture, that is the sulfur and the common salt which is remaining. We add water to it. So the salt, common salt, which is soluble in water, gets dissolved and sulfur remains. And what do? We filter that through the filter paper, and the residue which remains on the filter paper is the sulfur, and the salt solution comes out as filtrate. Again, the salt is separated from the solution by evaporation. Okay. So, we come to the end of this chapter. Please go through this. If you have any doubt, please write in the comment box. And if you like the video, press the like button. And if you are a new viewer to my channel, or if you have not subscribed yet, please do subscribe so that you can get the notification of my next video. Thank you.